Well, welcome to another episode of the YA podcast. We're excited that you joined us today. If this is your first time listening, you have to make sure and go back and listen to some of our other episodes. You're kind of joining us in the middle of the conversation. We've been dropping episodes for the past couple of weeks, going over the Winning Young Adults in our Harvestfield book. And today we're on chapter 5, Love Matters. And today I have Jon Bingham joining us. Jon, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. Looking forward to the big time here this morning.
That's right. That's right. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your family, where you serve, all of those things.
Sure. So I'm here in Lexington, Tennessee. Used to serve with Ryan. Served with Ryan for many years before he took this job at the TVMB. I'm working with the church here bivocationally, dealing with young adults. Also, I handle the evangelism and all of our media here at the church. I also work at a automobile dealership here in town. Manage that. So I stay pretty busy between those two jobs. Got a wife to be married for 20 years this August. So we're looking forward to celebrating that. 3 children. I got my oldest is Erin. She's 18. Starting college cosmetology school this fall. My middle boy Eli is 15. Be going to high school this year. Be a freshman here starting in just a few weeks. And then Evan, my youngest, is 11, headed off to the 6th grade. So I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of different seasons of life, to be honest with you right now. Everybody's shifting around, going to different areas, and I don't feel like I should be old enough to do all that, but time says I am, so I guess I am.
Yeah, a lot of transition for you and your family, one going into middle school, one going into high school, one going into college and the workforce, and here
Yeah.
you are just young and killing it.
Yeah, just trying to figure all that out. So they said it was easier, they get older. I don't know if that's accurate or not. And as we'll talk about today, dealing with young adults is not the easiest thing to do. And I can speak to it from both the church aspect and from personal experience as well. So I
Yeah,
can
for
I
sure.
can offer a little bit on both of those. So and you're just starting your journey. You've got just a few more weeks until your journey begins. So
That's right. By the time this episode drops, we will probably have given birth to our first child. So yeah, we're excited
there
about
you
it, and
go.
so
And
that's
then you'll
it's
get to start that.
yeah, the the process of figuring out what the heck I'm supposed to be doing. So it's a any if any listeners have any advice, feel free to send it my way.
Yeah, that's right. My advice is always the same. Just do your best and hope for the best. That's about
That's
it.
right. That's all.
Because you
Do
can't
what you
ever
can do,
tell.
huh? That's
That's
right.
right.
Well,
You can't ever tell.
so some of the things that you talked about in the book as we kind of as you kind of got started was just the characteristics of millennials, which will be a large majority of what we consider young adults. The Gen Z starting to come in there, but being cause driven, being passionate, but not necessarily passionate and cause driven as far as institution is concerned, but individual causes that they feel highly about. So how do you see love and the church's opportunity to show love kind of intersect young adults' passion and cause drivenness and all of that?
Well, I think love has to be the key. When you asked me about writing chapters, I kind of waited a little while, and love just kind of kept sticking out there. And to me, it's the thing that matters the most. We have to love these kids, and they're not the easiest kids to love sometimes, right? They're difficult to talk to. Sometimes they're difficult to communicate with. Sometimes they are real good at ghosting you, right?
Yeah,
You can spend a lot of time investing in somebody and then them just fall off the map, right? That's all aspects that we deal with when we're dealing with these young adults. But the key to that is that you've got to love them through that. You've got to stay committed to them, stay showing them that you care about them. And I see this from my own personal aspect. Even with my own daughter, she's just 18. She's difficult sometimes, but they're much easier to communicate with if you come to them in a position of love and of I'm here for you, I'm here to support you, I'm not here to judge you, I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong, I'm not here to tell you. Now we'll get to that point, but that's not the aspect that I'm trying to come out. So to me, love is the key. It's starting the whole thing is we have to love these kids and love these young adults and take them for their value of what they are, which is the next generation. The next generation is going to take the church the next step. And unfortunately, I don't think we've done a great job of it. I don't think the church as a whole has done a great job of it, and I think we've always kind of struggled in this age group, and that's why I'm excited to see what you're doing with the TBMB because you're putting an emphasis on this generation that's going to take us to the next level, take us to the next step. So
Yeah,
I think
and
that's a huge impact.
for sure. And I mean, it's like you said, there's in no way do we compromise God's word or the truth. And it
Mm,
doesn't mean that down the road you don't speak hard truth in love and try to correct actions. But if you don't build that relationship, if you don't build that love
mhm.
platform, if you don't invest the time to understand their background and who they are and why maybe they struggle with what they struggle with, and the family dynamics or personal dynamics, then you can't really speak that truth into their life because you don't know them. You don't know the difficulties that they're walking through. And um, a lot of times church leaders aren't willing to get into the mess that is young adult ministry and take that patience,
Right.
like you said, of when a young adult doesn't text you back immediately, or maybe they don't ever text you back, and it seems like they're trying to skirt you in public or avoid eye contact or whatever it may be, that you just humble yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm going to keep trying to pursue this relationship because I care about them. And so,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And they're all so unique. I mean, they're individualistic. Yes, they're different, but they have such an ability to do things that even I can't do. I can't figure out because they've grown up in such a different way than even myself, who's not that far removed from it. But they won't just give you that and show you that just because you talk to them one time. You got to work hard to show them that you care about them and love them before they'll actually reveal what some of their strengths are to you. So,
yeah. And we've seen that, um, we've seen us working together for many years, being in both student
mhm.
ministry world and the college and young adult world. So we would be investing in a student for years before they actually enter into the young adult life, which I think is rare maybe in young adult ministry, because I would say a lot of our people who are doing this, probably the young adult life is the first time they've interacted.
Yeah.
For a lot of the ministry we've done, we've known them for a long time. And so we've seen kind of the teenagers going into young adult life we expected to step up and be really
Mhm.
strong leaders who didn't. And
Yeah.
then we've seen some who, man, once they graduated, they took their faith serious and it was just a complete surprise and shock, but they're killing it right now in their faith.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think what you talk about is something that we've done here that I think we built this
Sorry, I
together
didn't understand that.
was building something that started from the minute you entered student ministry from middle school and investing and building and building and building and then having that natural segue as you got older. So many times we see a church that spends so much effort in children's ministry, so much effort in student ministry, and then they graduate high school. We give them a bag, say, "Man, we appreciate it. You've done some great things. Now go on." And then you end up in a room with a bunch of 30, 40, 50, 60-year olds that don't understand how to communicate with you, that don't invest with you, and you just kind of fall off. And I think that's where we were a little different is we spent a lot of time creating that space for them. And it's made a difference. I mean, right now at the church, we've got 4 interns working here who all we watched develop from middle school through high school and now into college. And they're right here taking those next steps. And they're going to keep going. We've got locals here in our association who are serving in youth ministry, who are serving, bivocationally, that all built through that process. And so I think the results are the proof of it. It works if you're committed to doing it, but you can't just do it by throwing up a banner and saying, "Hey, we've got a young adult ministry here.
Yeah.
Come join us. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I mean, not to just try to wave the Lexington flag like we got it all figured out, because you and I both know that's not the case. But one thing that
That's
is
right.
interesting is Lexington, as a just an example, because that's where we both serve and know, and is in no way a college or young adult town by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. A rural farming town that people most of the time move from rather than move to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like you said, we provided a space. One thing that you do that I think more churches need to lean into is give, even at the young teenage level, opportunities of service and a place in the
Yes.
church through the AV committee or through different ways. Kind of talk a little bit about that, about really how you've seen some of our most troubled and hard to connect students really dive in deep into church life through service.
Well, I think that's a huge aspect of it because we talk about this all the time. And, as I read through this chapter and read through the whole book, and I think everybody understands this, saying that we want you to come alongside us and serve is one thing. Actually putting it into practice is a different thing. And so often you see that where you get kids that want to be a part of something, but then when you actually get to the point where they can serve, you're like, oh no, you might mess it up, or it might not go as well as we want it to go. And I've always thought completely different. You know, I had a couple of students that you couldn't connect with at all, that they didn't want to be part of anything. They were troublemakers. They spoke out. They did all those things, but they had a very good interest in technology. They had a good interest in serving in that manner. So I put them to work, running the slides, running cameras, running lights, running the sound, the whole thing. Over time now, they do it all on their own. Wednesday night right now, we have 4 students. One runs the lights, one runs the sound, one runs the slides, one runs the cameras. They know how to set it up. They know how to work it. They do better at some of it than even I used to do at it because they took it and it's a passion for them. One of those guys actually has committed his life to ministry in just the last couple of weeks. That doesn't have anything to do with what I've done, but when you give people the opportunity to serve, when you give these kids an opportunity to serve and then let them do it, their passion comes out. Their passion seeks out and they want to be a part of that. And I think that's something that if you're not doing that already, you really need to take a good look at. If you're discipling somebody and you're having them come alongside you and walk alongside you, you got to give them the opportunities to go in there and actually do the work and be a part of that. And if you don't, then they're going to end up saying, well, what's the point? I'm not getting the opportunity that you told me I was going to get. So, and yeah, they might not always be perfect. Those kids, they still they still act out.
Yeah.
They still be hard to wrangle sometimes, but they at least will respect the ministry enough to do it in a way that they understand will bring them, some value to what they're doing just because we've given them the opportunities to serve.
Yeah, and you're even talking to it at the student ministry level. And so a lot of our churches, they're trying to figure this out at the young adult level. And it's like, man, you're so far
Mm-hmm.
behind the 8 ball of getting them plugged in, because you're talking about 13, 14, 15 year olds that are
Sure.
serving and running all of this, when a lot of our churches are trying to figure out how to get 20 to 30 year olds plugged in. And it's like you're a decade behind when you should be trying to
Yeah.
get them plugged in to service opportunities in your church.
But I think it's the same aspect there. I think you still have the opportunities, even for a 20, 25-year old, um, if you will cultivate that relationship and then let that relationship become growth. I talked about it in that chapter that I wrote, and I still believe it's to be accurate. This group of this generation of people, whether you want to say late teens through 30, whatever, doesn't matter. They are extremely passionate. Go to any college campus, go to any organization where they're a part of. If they've got something that they believed in, you can't convince them anything else. And the problem is we've not taught them how to believe in the only thing that matters.
Mm.
We've kind of let them fall apart, And they've started to glean on to all these things that really don't matter instead of being focused on what does matter. So if you can get them kind of wrangled in, even if it's just three or four, you can start with three or four. You don't have to have 40, 50, 60. It doesn't matter. You can start with three or four and it'll build off of that
Yeah.
once you commit to it.
And you kind of talk about and that kind of plays into this, the difference in a young adult ministry versus a ministry to young adults.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not it. I think a lot of times we have the field of dreams mentality of if we build it, they will come, instead of building it with them as they come.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I know that we've seen success in that of, we'll lean into something for a little while and it works, and then for whatever reason it stops. And if we're not willing to pivot and change or ask, our group, what would you rather see done here? And so I know that I'm change resistant sometimes. And so kind of talk a little bit about the importance of being willing to pivot, of keeping your finger on the pulse of your group and those type of things when it comes to ministry.
Well, the running joke around here and around churches was that the evangelism strategy didn't change for 50 years. It was the same one. Y'all come. That was
Yeah.
the only strategy you had. You know, you know where we're at. You know what time we start. Y'all come. Y'all come. That was it. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. What works is going to where they're at, finding out what works best for them, finding out what times work best for them, finding out all those things that work out, and then building from that. And then once you build from it, allowing them to have input on what the next step is. Maybe they want, maybe you've got a group that says, hey, why don't we do this for a few weeks instead of this? Why don't we change? I mean, we've seen that with curriculum. At one point, we were trying to do curriculum that was more, speaker led. Well, we found out that kids liked it more when we did more discussion, biblical discussion straight from the Bible, interpreting chapter by chapter. So we started a series where we went from Acts through all of Paul's letters, right? Weekly, chapter by chapter. And we saw a lot of results out of that. Of course, now you're seeing that that's kind of coming to an end. It's time to change again. Well, it's not for us to decide how we change. Let them decide. Let them help you decide what the best effort is. Maybe you need to take a few weeks and have some actual some service opportunities. Maybe you're going to go out and serve in the community this way, or go out and serve in this area. All those things, if you get so bogged down by, well, we have to do it this way, this day, this time, it ends up falling apart, because this generation is more so than any generation I think you've ever seen. It's not time sensitive. They're time flexible. They're growing up in a generation of remote work. They're growing up in a generation of work from home. They're growing up in a generation where they don't want a traditional 9 to 5 every day. So you have to allow that to change too. And maybe you don't get to meet on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, like, we've convinced ourselves we have to meet. Or maybe you don't get to do that. Maybe you have to start meeting on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night or a Saturday afternoon or whatever. But you have to be willing to go through that and change to that to help, kind of cultivate that area of what works for you.
That's good. So as far as our other ones that we've had on the podcast, I feel like you have a unique perspective because you are bivocational. I know I've gained such a new level of respect for volunteers and bivocational pastors in the last 2 years, being in this new job and having a full-time job separate from the ministry that I'm also pouring back into, and just how difficult it is to balance family and work, and then also the side ministry that you're trying to do and pour into and invest in the local church. So coming from a bivocational pastor, probably speaking to a lot of bivocational pastors, what just what encouragement would you give in that of, trying to balance family and church life and work life and personal health and all of those things?
Well, it's difficult, and I'm not going to say that I've done it well because there's been times when I feel like I put too much of an emphasis in one area and maybe not enough in the other. So you have to find that balance, and you have to be able to say no sometimes. And in ministry, the one thing you don't want to do when you commit to ministry is say no. You want to be able to help in everything and be a part of everything, but the reality is you just can't. You have to understand where you feel that God's leading you and stick to that. The other thing that I think we've done a pretty good job of is trying to have our entire family involved in everything that we do. If I'm going to be a part of something, and it's young adult centric or it's evangelism centric, whatever it is, I'm bringing my wife along with me. She's coming along and serving beside me. I'm bringing my kids along with me. My youngest, Evan, who's 11, I mean, he thinks he's 20 years old. And it's because he has grown up and has spent his entire life around, teenagers to 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And he's been a part of it. And they know it, they know him just like, he knows them and he's not afraid to go talk to them. And the reason's because I didn't want to leave them behind. I didn't
Yeah.
want to go out and here and serve and not have them part of that ministry. So I think that's important too. And, understanding that you still got to have time for yourself. Um, you know, in ministry, you can work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day if you want to. And there's always something you can be doing. There's always something you could be talking to, studying, whatever. And I'm not disvaluing the time that it takes to do that, but you have to take some time for yourself to relax, to re-energize. And what I found too is you got to find something in the church that you can go be a part of that you don't have to lead.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Something
think
that's
that's one of
pouring
the
into
things that
you.
that that so many of the even vocational ministers don't do, and it leads to so much burnout. Is everything that you're a part of, you're the one that's having to lead it. You're the one that's having to speak on it. You're the one that's having to teach it. And if you're doing that, you're just pouring out. You never get poured back in, and it just leads to burnout. So
Mm.
I've kind of stepped away from a couple of things that I was leading just so I could have those moments to allow somebody else just to pour into me, because I don't have all the answers, and there's other people out here that can speak into your life, whether they're just a volunteer, whether they're a teacher, it doesn't matter. But if you're not taking the time to do that, it just leads to just so much just difficulty and burnout to me.
Mm. That's so good. Do you have any kind of final comments, encouragements to those who are listening, whether they are a volunteer, they're, part-time, they're full-time, they're having trouble connecting with young adults? What's just some last minute encouragement you would give to them?
Well, I think that the first thing is that if if you're not facing all of that and going forward with all that by being prayed up, studied up, spending that time in that, then it's never going to work. You can't go out and start and lead in this ministry if you're not truly allowing God to speak into your life each day. So I think that's the first thing, is still carving that time for study, carving that time for prayer. But ultimately, once you get through that, I just think that the key for it is just the perseverance that comes with it. You just have to realize that some days are not going to be good. Some days are going to struggle. Some days, some people are not going to, be a part of what you want to be a part of. I mean, we've done events where we had 20 people were going to show up and 2 people showed up. You know, you want to quit? Sure. there's a moment that you say you want to quit, but guess what? You do it again the next week and all 20 show up. That's just the nature of the business or nature of the beast that you're dealing with here. So stick with it, persevere, and when that happens, just say, God, thanks for the two. Yeah, don't your aspect of it can change very easily as long as you try to continue to put that spin on it. That God, you've given me these 2 people, or you give me this one person, or you gave me nobody tonight, but you gave me the opportunity to put together something and spend some time with my other leaders. So perseverance, sticking with it, and then ultimately, like we talked about in the chapter, just the love.
Yeah.
These kids need love. A lot of these kids don't get the love that they need. They don't get it at home. They don't get it wherever they're at. They struggle, and they're looking for somebody that will love them past their faults,
Mm.
that will love them for who they are and love them for what they are. And you have the opportunity to do that. And if you'll do it, what you'll find is that 99% of the time, they will get out and serve with you better than probably anybody you've ever had, because they feel like you care about them and you feel like you've invested in them, and they'll help you.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's kind of you mentioned the difference of passion and polish. And I feel like there is that pressure sometimes as the leader to feel like you always have to have the answer, you have to always be the hero, whatever it may be.
mm,
But there's just something that resonates in young adults' life of being real, being that real person
yeah,
who does have doubts, who does have struggles, who,
mm,
does make mistakes, and young adults resonate with that. They,
yeah,
as Craig Rochelle says, people want a leader, not that always right, but always is real.
yeah,
And so people will be, um, lenient. Young adults will be lenient of mistakes if you're just real with them and honest of like, look,
yeah,
I'm trying and but I'm struggling. And, they would much rather you do that than trying to fake it till you make it. And I
yeah.
feel like far
That's
too often
exactly
we
right.
try to fake it till we make it. And young adults just have that meter. They see fake all the time, and they have that fake meter. And the
Yeah,
second they feel like you're being fake or ingenuine towards them and not truly loving and caring about them, they're going to write you off. And it's hard to be written back
yeah.
in once that happens. So,
Well, that's exactly right. And, I talked about it there in the very end of the chapter. I mean, we don't have to create these unbelievable things, right? We don't have to have the smoke shows. We don't have to have the 50-foot LED screens and all these, I mean, those are great. I'm not disputing anybody does, but these people want real. They want somebody that will tell them, say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today.
mm,
I'm struggling. I have days where I don't, where I don't want to get up, don't want to go, but I'm here and I'm serving and I'm trying my best. And if you'll do that, I can assure you, you'll have so many people that will respond to you better that way than you would if you walked in and acted like, everything's perfect every single day. So,
mm.
because they know
Yeah.
it's not, and they deal with it every day too. So,
Yeah, I can remember, um, you know, and this is again back in student ministry, but it's the same students that were just teenagers then versus now. But the series that we had where our videos were shared the most were when we had leaders just share their testimony
mm-hmm.
versus any of the
Sure.
times I got up there and preached. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, people's rawness and their stories resonate. And so
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. So love matters. Jon, thanks for joining us
Yeah.
today for a little bit. If there was something that resonated with somebody or somebody wants to follow up with you, what's a good way for them to get in contact with you if they want to follow up and ask you any questions or something like that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you my cell phone, 731-614-1021. Text me, call me. I'm always available. I may not answer, but I'll call you back or get back with you.
There you go.
Or my email is just here at the church. It's just Jon, Jon, at fbclexington.com. Either one of those. I'm on social media, but I'm not very, very active on social media.
There
Social
you
media
go.
is not my thing. So, but you can find me on there if you're interested. So, and I do respond. I'm just not much of a poster. So,
There you go. Well, Jon, thanks for joining us today and talking a little bit about Love Matters. And thanks for your ministry to Lexington and partnership there, but also as you're pouring into all of Tennessee Baptist now through the writing of the book and recording of the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thank
yeah,
you,
great.
listener, for joining and for just continuing to walk through this journey with us. Again, if this is your first episode, go back and listen to the other ones. We're about halfway through the book with the recording of this one, and so be on the lookout for the other episodes that are going to drop. Thank you for your generous gifts through the cooperative program and the Golden Offering through Tennessee Missions, because without those offerings, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So thank you for giving so that we're allowed and we're able to do the ministry that we're doing that's reaching young adults right here in Tennessee. Special shout out to Colby Mike for editing and engineering and producing this podcast. And until we meet again for another episode, go win Tennessee for Jesus. We'll see you next time. Thanks.